thank you for coming at such short notice. I have been asked over the past several years when I'd be holding an next press conference. And so today, I think this is the first time I have locally had a press conference since I demitted office. But I thought it necessary, given the speech that I made at Babujan and the predictable mischaracterization of the speech by, first of all, a group of people who have a lot to hide, that is the opposition, and the media houses that have traditionally been hostile to the People's Progressive Party. So I thought it necessary for the people of this country, once again, to hear about the themes that I explored at Babujan. And there were several themes that I explored. The first theme had to do with the PR campaign of the opposition to present themselves as the change, as new. And I posed the question, are they really new? Is Granger new to politics and public life in this country? Is Harman new to politics and public life in this country? Is Greenwich new to public life and politics in the country? Is Nagamutu new to public life and policy in the country? The answer by any right-thinking person would have to be a resounding no. They're not new. And the good thing about it is that most of us can still remember the record of these people. And somehow it's felt, and they get a free pass because they're shielded by some elements in the media from accounting for their record. And so if you are asking the people of this country to trust you because you're new leadership, then you have to have enough faith and trust in them to account for your record. And Greenwich has a record that is a dismal one. And I wanted to bring copies of his last two speeches in the Parliament, the budget speeches, for you. And as members of the media, you will be shocked by what he said about the state of our country and the impending collapse of our economy that took place under his tenure. And in the 10 years Greenwich was finance minister, he never once submitted an audited statement for the public accounts of this country to the National Assembly. And he is the biggest presenter and person who talks most about accountability today. And then Granger himself. Granger was a commander in the army. He was a confidant of the president at that time. He was placed in the army in a political capacity, not as a regular soldier. He was the politician in the army. He was one of the authors of the paramountcy of the party over the state doctrine practiced in that period. In fact, he wrote extensively defending it. Granger wrote several times in the news media that Indians are not suited for the army. The Granger was there when the weapons that was given to the PNC were lost. Granger was there when Walter Rodney was killed. Should he not say something about this to the country before you aspire to high office? If we were in the United States of America, and we love to use the US as an example, he would have never been able to run because they would dig up his records from the past. But here we have a compliant media sometimes, and a media and a group of people who are intended to shield him from scrutiny. But he needs to answer for that past. And that is what I was saying that should happen. Accountability is very important. It seems as though we should be the only ones who have to be accountable for our actions. So that is the first theme that I explored at Babu Jan, about the same faces resurfacing now in new guises who want to rewrite the past and want this country to believe, particularly the young people, because they don't have memory of that past, that they are coming to the table with clean hands. They're not. They're not. I spoke also about the danger of having that philosophy in the future in this country, a period when violence and repression and suppression of the press was the norm. And Granger comes from that period, and even some of the features, you listen to the speeches and that he makes, and he goes back to that period for inspiration. You don't hear him talk about, or Nagamoto, their prime ministerial candidate, about the future. What are the things that are going to generate the wealth of the future? How we're going to get there? How young people are going to be involved, etc. You constantly hear about features of the past. So that's the first element. The second thing I spoke about is that the fluff that Henry Jeffrey spoke about in Granger's speech at the launch. I said, we had come to expect that there would be that the speech would be about fluff from him and Nagamoto. Because throughout the past 3 years, every attempt that we have made to get them to talk about serious issues. So you're opposed to the hydropower, you're opposed to clean energy, you're opposed to cheaper energy. What's your alternative for energy or energy security in this country in the future? What's your alternative to ensuring that our businesses can get cheaper energy to generate jobs? What's your alternative for people to pay a lower electricity rate? And what's your alternative, because it's a big toll on the balance of payment? How you're going to deal with that in the future, particularly in the wake of climate change and volatility in prices of fuel, etc. Not a word, not a beep. And so they're opposed to the Berbice Bridge too, and the rates and everything, but you don't hear alternatives. Have you ever heard Nagamoto, Ramjatan, Greenidge even, and Granger speak about their future with conviction? And I said to you, you ask me, ask any one of us, what are our plans for energy? What are our plans for ICT? What are our plans for education? What are our plans for health care? Where are the new sources of wealth? What policies we'll put in place? How are we going to tackle the infrastructural problems of this country? How are we going to work towards ensuring that every person owns their own home, or housing policy? I can sit down now without a single piece of paper and go through each of these in great detail. Not just philosophical words, not slogans, but great detail. I can tell you orientation, how much we'll spend on them, where they will be located, what policies we'll put in place, what programs and projects will accomplish these. I can do that now. So that was the second theme of my speech, about our plans to the future, that what they have presented to people about this future is all about fluff. It's about promises. In fact, no real plan. The third issue that I focused on were our achievements. I said, even we become victims of this same short-term memory. And because we forget how things were. And many times, we don't look, some things are invisible. You can see the roads that have been fixed, and now everyone even remember how bad these roads were. Or you can see the schools that have been rebuilt, or hospitals, or maybe the sea defenses, or something of that nature. But the core issue, where it revolves around the economy and returning this country to viability and to the strongest economy and the most vibrant economy in this part of the world, in the Caribbean, was a tortuous process of change. And I pointed out only about 10 of the things that we have changed. I can tell you 50. I can give you a list of 50 things that we had to change to ensure that today that there is enough money in the central bank to cover months of exports and debt servicing, that our budget is sustainable, that inflation is low, that we can spend more back on people. We have changed this country. And you see evidence of it. You know, if someone who's lived here 10 years ago and today, compared to today, would see change, and yet they haven't seen that. So I will come back to this theme about achievements, but that was the third theme of my presentation. The fourth theme, it was about, can we trust this new coalition? And I said, again, I posed a few questions about what will happen in the period after nomination day. That there will be no AFC. So AFC will disappear. There will only be a name maybe on the ticket, but there will be no AFC. There will be one ticket, one list of candidates, and one head of that list. And the head of that list has the right to recall any member from Parliament. The head of that list will decide who goes into Parliament. The head of that list is very powerful, can make all kinds of changes. And that since there will be no AFC, if the Granger decides that there will be 80% of the parliamentarians of the number of seats that they win in Parliament will come from PNC, there is no leverage that AFC has. They will not be able to, like what they did with us, pick up their bundle and walk away and all kinds of stuff. And no leverage because there is no party. There's only one party. And I don't know if they realize it or the country realizes that. So when they go out and campaign on the AFC banner, that they're AFC anymore. There's no AFC after that date. And then I wondered if Nagamootoo, who all of his life, who talked about rigged elections, and every person, right-thinking person in this country, even from the PNC, even Trotman once said, elections were rigged. Every government in the world, internationally, has written about this, believe this. Every media, every group that has observed elections. And one man believes differently, Granger. Granger says there were no rigged elections in this country. And you sit at the same table with the person next to you who says, no, this is not true. And all of your life, Nagamootoo, you have fought against rigged elections. That's what you say. And then you believe that that person will keep his promise to you. Gotta be something wrong. That how out of touch can you be with the world and this country to deny rigged elections in this era? You have to be out of touch with reality. And Granger believes there were no rigged elections in Guyana. It is amazing. And so that I explored too, which is a legitimate theme to explore on the platform. And then I also explored the sloth in Parliament and the deliberate attempt of the opposition to stymie government projects and the sloth in many areas of implementation of projects, to throw us off of our vision, the vision of change. And that's, I said to Ramatar, that maybe sometimes we have to use different methods, maybe not the most elegant language, but I do believe you have to kick asses sometimes to get things done. I do believe that. And not because you hate people, but because that is the attitude that you have to have in a country like ours, especially when it involves people's lives and bringing services to them. Whatever you have to do to change this country and to ensure a better life for our people, the methods are justified, even if you have to, not literally, but in a figurative sense. It is symbolic of a tough attitude. Kicking asses means symbolic of a tough attitude to getting things done. Not dilly-dallying, not wasting time with them, not sitting in hours and hours of the meetings with the opposition when from the time they leave your office, make all the promises, they go and change your position. You waste time with, a lot of time with them. That is the attitude. It was a symbolism, the symbolism of it. And then I spoke also about Chedi Jagan's vision. I made it clear, if you read my statements at Babujan, I said that we in the People's Progressive Party, this family, we've grown up not to pay attention on people's race, their religion, or their gender. That it will never be the PPP if we depart from that vision. That is Chedi Jagan's vision. That is forefront in my speech. And then I said, we must fight racism. And I know, and most of the people, when I say this, know that it's true about what took place in the last elections. They know that people were deployed, and Harman knows this too, that they were deployed to go to some villages and to beat the drums. It happened in South. And to go to homes and say, let's throw out these Kali people. And then I said, if you read my speech and you look at the transcript, I said, had that happened in the People's Progressive Party, had one of our members acted that way, we'll kick him out. Because we are committed to fighting racism. We're committed. This is what we're about. Our track record is clear on this. But, of course, that morphed in the Kaichur news, and that I said it's a Kuli people party, and that Rohi endorsed that. Absolutely untrue. If you read any right-thinking person, just read my speech, listen to it, and you will know. But, of course, I'm not going to get into what Kaichur News will do and what they wouldn't do. They're probably being paid to carry that line by the opposition, and they have their own orientation. But what I think has created so much unease in the opposition camp is because, and they will try to obfuscate the issue, to make wild accusations, because they want to hide from their track record. And so they will do everything so that we do not focus on Granger's record. They will do everything so that we don't focus on their lack of plans for the future of this country. That they would do everything to ensure that we don't point out the inconsistencies of their policies over the past 3 years. So cut $200 million from the University of Guyana, the student loan program, and then promise that you will give them, the children there, free education. Inconsistency. They will do everything to point that out. And so we don't have any apology to make for fighting racism. We don't have any apology. You've heard me on the platform 100 times saying that, and I will say that. I'm a son of this soil, and I will fight racism every single day. I made it clear at Babujan that this country cannot develop if its benefits are felt only by one group of people. Cannot have a long-term future. And I believe in that. The record show it, my speech at Babujan. So any attempt to change that will not change the core issues. And the core issue is, are they going to do this again? Are they going to appeal to racism again? That seems to be the only tool that the opposition has. In this day and age, one tool. They can't campaign on their achievements. They don't even have a future plan that is viable. They have leaders that they're presenting to Guyana who are spent, weary from another era. So what do? What is the tool they use? They go to racism, hoping to polarize our people so that they don't focus on platforms, on policies, etc. They only focus on race. We're going to fight that in the PPP. We're going to fight it with all the vigor that we have. So those are in broad way, not everything, but in a broad way, some of the themes that I explored at Babujan. These were the themes. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks. Bharrat, and now we'll take a question. Please state your name and the media house.
In a subtle way to appeal to your supporters.
I raised the issue of race.
Rally your traditional supporters.
I raised the issue of race because it is the only tool that the opposition used in the last elections, and they're back at using it again. And I urge a PPP crowd, there to say, we will depart from Chedi Jagan's vision if we don't fight racism. I want Granger to go to a platform where he has a PNC crowd, mainly. That is one of their rallies where the people go there who are mainly PNC supporters. And say what I've said. Say what I've said. Say, we will depart from Burnham's vision if you don't fight racism. I will take you a wager today that they will never do that. Because they can't say their public message often, it would send mixed signals to the people. Because what they say publicly often differs from what they say privately, not unlike us. I'll say, I have one line, and that's the PPP line, fighting racism. I wish every politician would get on a platform with their supporters and say, you know what? In these elections, we should fight racism in all its manifestation. But they will not do it like I did, because they can't tell their own base this. Because when they go to the whisper campaign to say Ramatari is racist and this person is racist, the whisper campaign, then people would say, but how you told us this on the platform? How did you tell us to fight racism on the platform? And now you're whispering other things to us, because they use the whisper campaign well. And so I am proud of what I did. Raising the issue, it's not like it's not in politics and it hasn't been analyzed 100 times. I don't sweep it under the carpet. I raised the issue and I said, let's fight it. Fight it, and to a PPP crowd. I'm proud of that.
Follow-up, sir?
Yes, but please.
Yes, sir.
So we can get this one issue out. Let's deal with this one issue
The
first.
quick issue is that at this time, the APNU and the AFC are going to be on a unified campaign trail. The AFC leadership appears to be people of East Indian ancestry.
Appears to be?
Well, you got Truckman and Yankee
okay.
and all of that.
Okay.
How is it then that they can go out there and actually raise bait, based on what you said just now?
my feeling is that it is not done in the public way. It's the whisper campaign. It is the whisper campaign that has happened in the past. So in 2011, through various mechanisms, they did a whisper campaign on Ramatar about racism. But I had been 12 years president of this country, and I've gone to every community. And in my tenure, they couldn't, I don't think it resonated so much because people saw me working. But they used the whisper campaign, and they plan to use it again. They've started it. It starts on Facebook. It's anonymously, and then by a few individuals. And then it goes to the communities, and then it turns up on election day. Nobody is denying that that actually happened, that people went and in some villages and were beating the drums at 6 in the morning and making racist statements. Nobody is denying that because it happened. It did happen, and it was written about. And so that is what we need to avoid, because that's racism. So that's how I see it. And this is an alliance of convenience. No, this gentleman here. Yeah.
Sir, you spoke in your opening presentation about the opposition not having viable plans for the future and inconsistencies in policy. I'm wondering, sir, are you prepared to, or would you have maybe advised Mr. Ramatar, President Ramatar, to publicly debrief members of the opposition on these matters? And secondly, you made mention of Granger having to account for his record, the missing gun.
Because he is running for president now.
Yes,
presidency.
The question is, during your 12 years as president, what would you have done during that time?
Yeah, sure. Well, I can speak about my record at any point in time, but I'm now running to be president of this country now, and I can defend every element of my record. I'm prepared to do that at another press conference. You ask me any questions about the entire period that I've been there, and I'll be willing to answer. But he is running for president now of our country. He is saying, I will take care of all of the people of this country. And then he doesn't want us to focus on his record. And how out of touch could you be by denying there were rigged elections? If he's out of touch on that simple fact that is known and that has been assimilated and accepted by this entire nation, how more out of touch would he be on other issues of development? That is what I'm asking. Isn't it legitimate to ask those questions? Is it not? Yes, the public debate, I think our president has said he's ready to debate Granger. I'm not running for elections. I debate anyone, any one of them, but I'm not the presidential candidate of the People's Progressive Party, but I will debate any one of them. Granger, Ramjatan, Trotman, Greenwich, any one of them. And maybe all of them together if you give me equal time. All of them together. Yes.
Gordon, most news source. Mr. Jagdeo, sir, help me out here with my memory. Mr. Granger had served on the Discipline Services Commission while you were president, sir. While you were president. And he had put together a report on all other members of that commission with regards to the security situation in the country. And that report was accepted by your government and by the parliament. So would you consider it hypocritical that as president you accepted Granger's recommendations on crime and national security issues, but now that he's running for office, these issues that you say are important are now being brought up? Is it hypocritical?
No, because when you participate as one of a member of a group, then it was not Granger's report. Granger was one of the persons in that commission that submitted a report to me. Granger at that time was not running to be president of Guyana. Today, he is running to be president of Guyana. It has changed totally. Clearly, isn't it hypocritical for the media to not want to examine his record. In the U.S., if you're going to head a charity, nobody pays attention to your record, etc. But the day you say that I'm going to try to run for the presidency, getting involved even in the primary, then you have public vetting. You have the media trying to establish what the person did from childhood. President Obama had so much trouble because the Republicans some Republicans were arguing that he was not even American. You remember that he was born in Kenya, in spite of the fact that he responded several times to the issue. They had to go and dig up the birth certificates, etc. That's the difference. That is why there is no hypocrisy. If it was Granger, the ordinary citizen, then that tenure, it is concerning, but it doesn't matter that much. It's Granger, the presidential candidate now, who must come clean. And to say it, doesn't it bother you to say a man who says, oh, there was no rigged election in this country? When the guy who is his prime ministerial candidate has been on the platform hundreds of times in protest marches against rigged elections. And they get along well. They gaze into each other's eyes and get along so well. In a private moment, wouldn't Nagamootoo want to say, I disagree with you on that? And how do I trust you if you can't even admit that?
But sir, do you see that as an indictment on the PPP when one of your leading members who would have served the party for 5 decades would leave the party to go be the prime ministerial candidate for this gentleman? Is that an indictment on the way your party has been doing business over the past 22 years?
No, there is one thing that we can control, and that is personal ambition. And so we were the wonderful party, the clean party, when Mr. Nagamootoo sought to be our presidential candidate. He said, I want to be the presidential candidate for the PPP. That was in 2011. We had several people who were contesting the post at that time. He lost the post. He didn't get to be the presidential candidate for the People's Progressive Party. Prior to that, he had said falsely that Cheddi Jagan had ordained him to be president or presidential candidate, falsely. He did not get the nomination, so he left our party. He went to the AFC, hoping to be the presidential candidate or to get an enhanced position there. And then they didn't succeed there, so he has drifted again to APNU. So that speaks a lot about the personal nature of the person, the character of the person, and what he sees as priority. Not serving the country, but his own place where he is. And I am happy to see that so many of the people from the AFC who believed that they had principles have left and now have argued that what has happened in this alliance of convenience is that the top leaders of the AFC have secured positions for themselves. Vice President's position, Prime Ministerial, Attorney General, etc. And they've forgotten the base of the party that believe that there should be a third force equidistant from the two major parties, and that was good for Guyana politics. They've abandoned that. And it speaks a lot about personal ambition. And the day that he left the PPP, the party that he was seeking to be the presidential candidate of, we became corrupt the next day. Not the day that prior to that when he was seeking to be our presidential candidate. Yes.